Well, I'm Dave, and I regularly attend this church, Cornerstone, but I am not the regular preacher for this church. But every once in a while, I do get an opportunity to share a thought or two. And as was mentioned earlier, the church is going through a reading experience. This should be familiar for everyone that is involved. This is our Reading the New Testament in Community. And you all just read Matthew. And I did too, as I was preparing for this particular message, and I wasn't sure which direction to go in. But what struck me as I was reading Matthew, and I was getting into my commentaries, is they highlight very quickly that Matthew is centered around 5 great speeches of Jesus. They call them the discourses. There are 5 great discourses that Jesus does through the book of Matthew. And Matthew probably did this on purpose because he was hinting at something else. Back up maybe a little over 2,000 years before that, and you have an author whose name was Moses, who wrote the book of Deuteronomy. And would you believe the book of Deuteronomy was built on 5 great discourses of Moses? And so what you have there is Matthew showing that Jesus, in his 5 great discourses, is doing what Moses did in his 5 great discourses, only Jesus is doing it new. He's doing something new, something better. And immediately, my brain triggered over into the book of Hebrews, which is what you'll all start tomorrow. Right? Tomorrow will be day 1 into the book of Hebrews, because this is one of the themes, great themes of the book of Hebrews, that Christ is greater than Moses. That's kind of the journey and how I arrived at it. So a little more background maybe than you wanted and how we landed where we are today. But that's where we're going. That's how I got there. So that is the question, is, what did we come here this morning to learn, and what are we here for? What has God prepared for us? And the answer is the same thing that the author of Hebrews felt the church there needed to learn. So I'm going to reveal that today for you. Okay? So the church in Hebrew, it's a difficult one, because when we talk about Ephesians, we talk about the church in Ephesus. When we talk about Corinthians, we say the church in Corinth. But I can't do that with the book of Hebrews, because Hebrews isn't a city. Like, I'm stuck, right? So a few times you're going to hear me trip, right? I'm going to say, the church in Hebrews. Please forgive me, okay? It's going to happen. It's going to come out of my mouth. But it is the church to whom the letter of Hebrews is addressed to. You don't want to hear that 17 more times this morning, right? So that's the substitution. Okay, so to those people, a couple of things I just want to bring up. We find out in the letter itself, as we read it, there are some hints about who the people are. The first thing I want to point out is that they are 2nd and 3rd generation believers. This church and this letter is one of the later ones. It's moved on a little bit. And it seems to be far enough away from the major centers of our faith that there is no apostle, disciple, original great founder in this church. This church is running without the benefit of one of the eyewitnesses. All right? It doesn't have one of the eyewitnesses in its midst. And so if you stop and think about that for a second, neither do we. Right? Right here. We don't have in our midst one of the original eyewitnesses. And the church in Hebrews didn't either. Right? This was something that they had heard that was passed on to them, a teaching that was passed on to them from someone else who was an eyewitness. Right? They are now 2nd or 2 times removed. And in that way, getting a little bit closer to us, because we are 2, 3 times removed. Some of us maybe haven't even really experienced a faith much different than what mom and dad passed on to us. I mean, that's really 2nd generation faith, right? Where you just are Christian because mom and dad said so, right? So similar type of a scenario here. But interestingly enough, they were able to raise up pastors and elders in their own midst and teachers in their own midst. They had a genuine conversion, we find out. They were solid believers. Signs, wonders, miracles, that was all occurring in this church that had no apostle. No 1st generation, first eyewitness founder. They were free from mammon, which is a biblical way of saying they weren't locked under the idolatry of money anymore. They weren't worried and fearful of money and finances and security. They were quite generous, and they had unlocked themselves, and they were free of it. And anytime the New Testament scripture kind of hints at fear of money again, it's code for it's starting to creep back. You're starting to slip, right? One of the first signs is when you get overly concerned about your finances and your wealth and what's going on. It's one of those biblical signs that something's slipping. And we'll see that actually happens here too. They were on fire for God, of course. And so my question for you this morning is, do you remember that feeling? Do you remember when you first opened your heart to Christ, to God, your conversion? Do you remember it? Do you remember the passion? How open you were to just learning, give me more, give me more. Now, as time passed for the people of Hebrews, and track with me because I'm going to ask you the same thing, as time passed for you, right? From that conversion moment, what has started to happen? Well, new teaching began to creep into this church, and it was the basic fundamentals, the actual truth of Christ's life and his death, and the actual historical events that were slowly being eroded. Did that really happen? Should remind you of Satan. Did God really say? Right? Like it's that sort of thing was starting to creep into Hebrews, and they kind of, well, gee, I guess we weren't there, right? And this started to bubble up. Pressure from family, right? So if you were a good Hebrew and you became a Christian, you were going to experience some pressure from your family. Pressure from government, persecution, jailing was starting to happen. It wasn't rampant yet, but it was there, right? The persecution and the pressure was coming. And you know, this never happened when I just had my old faith. This is only happening now with this new one. And what's this new one based on again? What that guy said? Well, I didn't really see it, but I heard, right? And so now you're starting to see what's starting to happen, right? They're just, and the expression we use is they're backsliding. They're starting to backslide. Worry of money crept back in, right? They had been free of it. They were just unloading it. And they were praised for helping the church in Jerusalem because of, they needed it. They needed the money, right? So they were praised for that. But it started to come in. Religious pressure was all around them to return to what they knew. What made you successful in the first place? Yeah, I remember that, right? The pressure to go back to the way it was before, because somehow it was better. So my question for you is do you carry right now the same zeal and the same passion? Do you have the same zeal and the same passion for your faith as you had when you were brought to faith in the first place, at your conversion? Are you as into it and as committed to your faith as you were then? Right? That's the question. And I suspect very few of us can actually say to that question, yes, I am. I'm as on fire as I was the day I was converted. But some of us can, and what's interesting is if you talk to them, those who can, you'll find something, I'll bet you'll find a kind of a parallel in all of them. You'll say, well, tell me your story, like what's going on? And in almost every case, you're going to hear suffering, trial, temptation, persecution, trouble. Every time. And at the end of the book of Hebrews, which I'm not going to preach on today, we find out that the recipe for faith maturity, right, the formula for mature faith equals temptation plus trial plus persecution. It's the formula. It's the formula. Hebrews tells us, of course you're going to face it. You want to mature, don't you? Right? Like that's the absolute attitude. You want to grow up, don't you? Of course you're going to have temptation, trial, because who else had temptation, trial, and persecution? Right, that guy. Right? That guy, right? That's what Hebrews ends at. But it's not where he starts, and that's where I'd like to go this morning. I want to go to where does he start? What is his initial tactic to snap this church back? Snap them back into line, back into faith. Get back there and get excited again. And I'm hoping you'll find that it's the precise same tactic for you to focus on. Snap it, to wake it up, right? And he goes right back to the definitions. All right, so in just 1 second, I'm going to ask you to kind of look around and find 3 or 4 people around you, because we're going to do a 5-minute where I stop talking and you talk to each other, little activity, okay? So just, eyeball, I've never seen you before, I'm new to this church, And, let's just make sure that anyone you've never seen before is included, okay? That would be great. Also, if you could put your finger on Psalm 8, it was read in the call to worship. And I encourage you to arm yourself with that when you're about to go into your group discussion. Okay, there are 4 questions that I would like you to just noodle around for a bit in a group, and here they come as soon as I have faith that it's back. Wonderful. All right, so here they are. Who is the Father? Who is the Son? Who are the angels? And who are man? Okay, so all of these different beings out there, and as you talk to each other, see what you can do to kind of cover up, well, it seems that this being does that, and that being does this, and this is where this being fits in. See what you can do to sort out your hierarchy and kind of roles and responsibilities, okay? Let's spend 5 minutes on that. Just before you do, maybe someone should volunteer in your group to read Psalm 8 out loud, and then take 5 minutes to discuss the 4 questions. And go. We're at the halfway point. Halfway. And let's just finish our sentences. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, I heard the call for more time by my own son. Well, thank you. You all participated. That was great. That was great. Anybody feel like a blaspheming heathen at this point? Like they think maybe they got it wrong? Nobody. Thank you. I'd be amazed, right? Be amazed. Yeah, good. Yeah, okay. Let's obviously I cannot in the next 22 minutes. I cannot actually hammer out comprehensively the answer to these 4 questions. When you take a systematic theology course, you get 3 textbooks, right, like this, and they're big and fat. And those 3, one of them is what is God, full textbook. The next textbook, what is Christ, what is Jesus, and then the next one is what is man, right? So it's like textbooks like this. Right? So we won't go there. We'll just do a little bit. We'll do what the passage allows us to do. How's that? Right? We'll do what the passage allows us to do. Good. Which passage? Okay, fine. The first one, get out. We're going to do Hebrews and we're going to start at the beginning? Yes. Chapter 1, verse 1, 1 through 4. Good. We got some people hunting. I've taken the Community Bible reading version and just put it on our slide. So that's the one I'm working with, which I believe in this case is an NIV. I'll read this one. Actually, I would like it better if we all read it together. How about we do that? We'll just read it out loud together. And I'll start. In the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets at many times and in various ways. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, who he appointed heir of all things, and through whom also he made the universe. The Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being, sustaining all things by his powerful word. After he had provided purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty in heaven. So he became as much superior to the angels as the name he has inherited is superior to theirs. Good. Wonderful. Something that I would like to just quickly highlight to you are one of the hidden features here. Believe it or not, if you grab your Greek New Testament, because you all read Greek, and you read this, according to the manuscript, the best we have anyway, what you will find is that these 4 verses in Greek are one sentence. One long sentence. And by the mercy of God, the English translators have, all right, broken this thing up a little bit, right? But imagine trying to read it, just look at this thing as one run-on sentence, right? Imagine this in the Greek. Right? But that was a bit of a literary device. That was no accident. And if you remember some of the great speeches, maybe even Winston Churchill, he would have a couple of real long one-liners, but he had rhythm, he had pentameter, he had the ability to and you never missed his climax point. We will fight, yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? No? Okay. Winston Churchill, Google, great speeches, okay? So there it is, right? So it's similar. It's similar. But there's another one here that I want to kind of show you. It's a bit fun. And so why don't we do this together here? You're gonna try to pronounce a little Greek right now, okay? So this will be the fun. I'm gonna put on the screen a phonetic spelling, right? So it's not the real spelling, it's just the phonetic one. So you can try to say this, all right? What you're about to read is the first verse, or the opening line of this, all right? So let's give this a try. Let's give this a try. You're all kind of mouthing right now as if you're in choir practice on your vowels, right? This is good. Let's try this. All right, this first word, polumeros. Got that one? Polumeros. Kai. Yeah, polutropos palai. Right? Try it again. Polumeros kai polutropos palai. Anybody seeing anything yet? Is there a rhyme there? Right? Is there a repetition I heard, right? Of yeah, we got like these P's all over the place, right? We call that alliteration in English, right? Right? We got that. But there's also, so let's try making it sound like magical. Polumeros kai polutropos palai. Huh? Was that magic? No? All right. Try this one. Ha. Good. Theos. Yeah. Lali. Sauce. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Ha. Theos. Lalisas. Huh? Oh. Oh. Ha. Theos. Lalisas. Okay. Last. Oh. Tois. Patras. Did you say scene? Come on. If there's one word we should know. Scene. Tois. Patrasin. And tois. Prophetes. Okay. Okay. See more P's? You seen the P's? Right? They're all over this thing, right? Polumeros kai polutropos palai. Ha theos lalisos. Tois patrasin and tois prophetes. Okay? That's what, I hope you saw music there, right? I hope you saw bounce. I hope you saw rhythm, right? It should remind us of something. It should remind us of a great one. Okay? Peter, Piper, picked, a peck, a pickled, pep, right? That's what's going on. Only in this case, the author is just being cute and fun. The author of Hebrews, do you think he's using his brilliance to be just cute and fun? No. What is the fundamental question that we ask in Philosophy 101? Everybody that takes Philosophy 101 must answer this question before they even start the course. Who knows what it is? If a tree falls in a forest and no one is there to hear it, does it actually make a... There. And philosophy students all have to write 2,000-word essays and pound the snot out of it, right? I'm sorry, that was vernacular. They have to debate the merits and present their argument as to which one is the correct answer. If a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, is it right? So what is the Christian answer to this philosophical stymieing question? Yes, it makes a sound in the forest. Why? Oh, because animals can hear it, sound waves, right? But really we're saying, look, even if there aren't people there, God's there. God heard it. It made a sound. Right? Like that's, right? The tree falls in the forest, right? God's there. It made a sound. He heard it. That's the plain, simple answer. But you know, it's just not as powerful as maybe some good rhetoric. There was a young man who said God must find it exceedingly odd. Let me get it here so I don't have to look back. To think that the tree should continue to be when there's no one about in the quad. The tree fell in the forest and there was nobody. You tracking? So God decides to answer this. Dear sir, your astonishment's odd. I am always about in the quad, and that's why the tree will continue to be since observed by yours faithfully, God. All right? The power of rhetoric. I mean, that just banged the point out so much better than me saying, well, God's there, he heard it. Right? God's there, he heard it. Same message. There was a young man who said, God must find it exceedingly odd to think that the tree should continue to be when there's no one about in the quad. Dear sir, your astonishment's odd. I'm always about in the quad, and that's why the tree will continue to be since observed by yours faithfully, God. Right? That's the power of rhetoric. And that is sitting in Hebrews 1 through 4. It's there. And I'm only pointing it out to you so that you can appreciate, it's something new, it's fresh, it's beautiful, it's brilliant. But you don't have to go and throw your English Bibles away now, right? And say, that's it, I got to read this in Greek or I can't get this at all, right? That's not true at all. As you're going to see as we go through this passage, we're able to capture the full meaning and the full understanding of the passage in English, no problem, okay? Really good because the video before I got up here Would have been a problem if I was saying, nah, you got to be a Greek scholar in order to understand this one, right? That wouldn't have worked with the video, and it's not true. But I did want to just show you it's a little bit fun. So why don't we do this? Why don't we jump right in, and I'm going to hit the acceleration button here, okay? Here it goes. In the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets at many times and in various ways. I'm just going to pull a few highlights out here as we travel through this passage. First of all, what's being said? It's being said that in the past, God spoke to our ancestors, all right? Not completely, and he did it in the beginning, and he spoke to maybe one of our forefathers, and he told him a little bit, and then he spoke to another one, and he told him a little bit more, right? And what's being shown here is that the revelation, God's revelation and self-disclosure in the Old Testament was given in bits, in pieces, never complete, and you kind of had to add them all up to really understand what God was trying to tell humanity about himself. That's the old way. That's the way it was done in the old time. It was incomplete, it was fragment, it was progressive, and it was moving in a direction. All right? That's what's being said here about verse 1. And now it shifts over to here, but in these last days, that's not how he's chosen to do it. Right? He's not chosen to do it in fragments and in bits and in pieces. In these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son. Okay, so just a couple of quick ones I'm going to highlight here. The first one is the word spoken. It is in a particular tense in the Greek that if we just add the sentence once and for all, we'll have captured really what it's trying to say. So, but in these last days, he has once and for all spoken to us by his Son. All right, that's the loaded meaning behind the verse. It's once and for all, and it's complete, and it's final. Complete, final, once and for all, as opposed to the verse before. Right? Hopefully you're seeing the direct, clear opposite. Nuggets, components, fragments, zing. Right? We're seeing it? Whoop. That's the zing. I'll do it again. Okay? There it is. Good. Second, by his Son, kind of interesting. By his Son. Do you notice what it's not saying? What word it didn't say? It didn't say through his Son. And the English translation did a nice job here catching what the Greek's trying to get at. Didn't say through his Son. In these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son. If I say the word article, do you know what I mean in grammar? All right? This particular word, son, does not have an article. What it means is it doesn't technically have this word here, his. And really, the best way to read this is, but in these last days, he has spoken to us by Son, which is a strange English sentence, but it says something. All right? It is not saying that the revelation and the self-disclosure of God, his complete revelation, is what Jesus came here to teach us. You know, he spoke through Jesus. He's not saying that at all. He's saying the complete and the full self-disclosure of God is Son, Jesus. Not what he said, not what he did. No. The complete self-disclosure is Son. It's not an indirect object, it's the object. Okay? And so that's what's slipped in here and can slip right by if we don't just pay quick attention. Now we got a cute one, 2b. So what am I doing? I'm splitting a verse, 2a, and I'm doing 2b. And this, I'll just pay homage to our pastor here, would be one of his pet peeves, right? Like, why did we have to split a verse in half just to get a point? Who put those verses in there anyway? Right? Like, this is what we're, and I've had to do this, right? To separate, to wedge out the point here, 2a and 2b. Whom appointed heir of all things, and through whom also he made the universe. If we read this verse too quick, we actually do not see the problem or the challenge of this verse. Is anybody seeing a word in here causing them a little bit of pain? This one right here. Appointed. Okay, like Christ created everything, the whole world and the whole universe. He needs to be appointed it. This is a strange word. Isn't it his already? What do you mean appointed it? This is not the word you expect in the sentence. when describing God's Son. He had to be appointed everything to be the heir of it. It's a strange one. It's a strange one. I'm going to unpack it in a minute, just not quite yet, so I'm going to borrow a line from one of the movies I watched recently called Bolt. I'm just going to say, put a pin in it, okay? Okay? Put this on the board. We're going to come back. Hebrews 3. Okay, now we're into stuff we like a little better. The Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being, sustaining all things by his powerful word. After he provided purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty in heaven. All right, this we can deal with. The Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being, which is saying what? There couldn't be a more solid Trinitarian line than this one, right? Who is the Son? The Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being. In the beginning was the Word was God, and the Word was with God, he became flesh, right? Like, you put these two together, and you've got it. Your bookends Trinitarian biblical verses, right? Son is the exact representation of the being. You look in a mirror, you see yourself. When God looks in a mirror, he sees his Son, right? It's his Son. After he had provided purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty in heaven. Oh no, now we're in trouble again. After he provided purification of sins, he sat down. What, he couldn't sit down at the right hand of Majesty before? He can only do it after? Right? We've got just some trouble verses in here. All right? So again, put a pin in it. We're coming back. Okay? Verse 4. So he became as much superior to the angels as the name he has inherited is superior to theirs. Oh no. Problem. He became superior to angels? What? This is God. Isn't he already superior to... Are we seeing the problem? Right? Well, let's put these up together. Right? So verse 2, that was the first one. Whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom he also made the universe. And then this last one, so he became as much superior to the angels as the name as he inherited is superior to theirs. Well, what part of these is the same? It's an orange, right? The front part of the verse, we're like, that's strange. And the back part, we got it, right? And through whom he also made the universe, no problem. And his name is inherited is superior to theirs, no problem. Right? But he was appointed heir, and he became superior. These are strange. These are strange. We're going to need some help interpreting this, right? And getting it. And what is the best interpreter of the Bible? I heard it back there. The Bible, right? Which is why the video we heard before from the pastor saying that community Bible reading is the way to go. You don't need to be a scholar to be an interpreter is categorically correct. The best interpreter of the Bible is the Bible. Just use it. So we're going to do that. We're going to do that. And I'm going to remind you of your Psalm 8, right? Remember this one? And we're going to move away from the Son for a minute. And we're going to focus on man for a minute, okay? To unpack this. Now we're talking about mankind. I'm sorry, when I meant humans, right? All of us, humankind. Okay. What is mankind that you are mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them. You've made them a little lower than the angels and crowned them with honor and glory. You made them rulers over the works of your hands and put everything under their feet. Okay? So what are we discovering about man? We're discovering this expression that they're made a little lower than angels, right? But we're also being told that they were made to rule over the works of his hands and everything has been put under their feet. Remember this one, right? This is the Great Commission to mankind right off the bat. God makes Adam, and he says, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth, and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. So we're made a little lower than angels, but we were made to rule, subdue, and absolute dominion and authority over God's creation. That was Adam, right? That's where it is. But what happened? Who remembers? Hopefully everyone. Right? We had original dominion and authority over all of created order. It was under our feet. What happened? I'm hearing it. I'm hearing the whispers, right? Right? Yeah, sin. The fall happened. And what did Adam do with the dominion and the authority and the rule over the entire kingdoms of the world? What did he do with that? He gave it away. To who? Don't believe me? He gave it away to Lucifer. It's a transfer. It was given to me. I have now taken this package and I have given it to you. Do you remember the wilderness? Jesus versus Satan in the wilderness. 3 temptations, the episode. Look at this. Isn't that incredible? It's been there all along. I've read this 1,000 times. It's been there all along. The devil led him up to a high place and showed him in an instant all the kingdoms of the world, which used to be Adam's. And he said to him, I will give you all their authority and splendor. Because it's been given to me, and I can give it to anyone I want. If you worship it, worship me, and it'll all be yours. What's interesting is if you keep reading in there, what does Jesus not say? Oh, no, you got that wrong. Dude. This is not all yours. This is really all mine. He doesn't say that. He grants the point. Jesus, when Satan says, these kingdoms are all mine. I sometimes fancy that what he was really thinking in his mind at that moment when Lucifer says, I will give you all their authority and splendor has been given to me and I can give it to anyone you want. I sometimes fancy that in that moment, Jesus was thinking, yeah, about that. I got a bit of a plan there, and I really don't think you're going to like it. I'm taking it back. All right? That's how I see. So the writer in Hebrews picks up on this a little bit later in chapter 2. Again, I'm moving forward just to interpret the backward. Right? And so we're talking about mankind again. Right? In putting everything under them, God left nothing to them that is not subject to them. Right? So in giving everything, there was nothing that was not subject to us. That's what it's saying. Yet, at present, right now, we do not see everything subject to us, mankind. But we do see a champion, a human champion who has risen to take on the current ruler and authority kingdom and to take it back. We do see Jesus, who was made lower than the angels for a little while, now crowned with glory and honor because he suffered death. He shared in their humanity so that by his death he might break the power of him who holds the power of death. That is, the devil. And free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death. For this reason, he had to be made like them, fully human in every way, in order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest, first time you hear this in the New Testament, in service to God, and that he might make atonement for the sins of the people. All right. So, there seems to be Jesus, Son of God, the divine, and his rights and privileges therein. And then there seems to be Jesus, man, and the things that he did, and as a consequence, the rights and privileges therein. Let's see if we can get this sorted out now. What we have here are sentences that are describing both natures. Both natures. Think of it this way. You own a business, and you're going to hand the business on to your child. Right? Some will say child didn't earn the business, he just got it from daddy. Right? Some will say that. Might be true. He inherited businesses through his birthright. He got it. Right? But this child was there were 3 children, but he's the one that showed the initiative. He's the one that did the schooling and the training. He's the one that worked with dad. He's the one that earned it. So you've got a situation where He both inherited it by birthright and he earned it by merit. That's what you have going on here. In these front halves, as a human, as a representative of mankind, Jesus was appointed heir of all things. As a man, for what he did as a man. As God, it was already his. And through whom also he made the universe. As a man, for what he did, he became superior to the angels. As a man. And here's a quick little note. Do you know Jesus is still a man? Like right now? In his glorified, exalted state in heaven, he's still a man. So God became incarnate flesh, and he's still a man. And he's right beside God. So who God represents seems to have something to do with where he's located. Sorry, who Jesus represents seems to have something to do with where he's located. When he's on earth, he seems to be representing to us God. But when he's in heaven, he seems to be representing to God us. He is representing to God humanity. That's where he is who he ends up representing as high priest, as mediator, which you'll get through as you read. Okay? All right. I'm just going to try one more time on this reading here to see if we can put it all in and grab it, and then I'll just bring it to a close. So here it is. Allow me to read into the passage one more time some of what we've said. In the past, God spoke to our ancestors bit by bit, this way, that way, really any way he felt like, but just a bit at a time. Incomplete, fragmentary, but he did speak to them. It was legitimate then. But in these last days, oh no, something new, something different, something complete, something final. He has spoken to us by his Son, who as a human earned through merit the right to be appointed heir of all things. He took it back from the then ruler, and through whom also he made the universe. It was his in the first place. The Son is the radiance of God's glory, the exact representation of the being. So if you really want to know who the Son is, he's really God. But he's not sitting around doing nothing. He's still busy. He is sustaining, upholding the whole world. After he had provided purification for sins, which only he could do, all right? Only he could do. Only an infinite being can die for the infinite number of sins of mankind and once and for all atone. Only he could do that by his being. He sat down at the right hand of majesty, still a man. So he became as much superior to the angels. He earned through his manhood what he already had through his divine name. Right? That's the package of Romans 1 through 4. It's a resume. Hebrews 1 through 4. He is announcing to the people of Hebrews who are thinking about leaving, going back to their old back. He's going, whoa. Do you realize who Jesus is and who you're walking away from? Do you really? Do you really? Do you have something that's better than this? Do you? That's the challenge of Hebrews. If I had a second message, I would show you something really cool about the nature of man, but we have to stop. So, the question for you as we close, the question for you is, do you really know who Jesus is? Do you really know? Do you know who he is? Reflect for a moment. Do you know who you are? Because of Jesus, the answer to the question, do you know who you are? C.S. Lewis grabbed it nicely in the Chronicles of Narnia when he had little beavers saying to these 4 children, You are a son of Adam. That's you. You are a daughter of Eve. That's you. And because of Christ, we will become royalty. Royalty. And Peter and Edmund and Lucy and Susan all get crowns at the end of the movie, right? They become royalty. It's another message. Okay? So do you know who Christ is? Do you know who you are? You're royalty. Or you can make this other choice, and you're not royalty. That's the Hebrews dynamic. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you for your living word. I thank you that you have included in your canon of Scripture, in the Bible, so much writing that is so relevant to our lives today. And we remember converting and coming to faith and being so excited and just knowing you and being so sure. And then the distractions start to kick in, and our job comes back, and our finances kind of come back into the picture, and then our children say things, or our parents say things, and we just start to slip. We start to come back, and we've forgotten who you are, Lord. And I thank you that the example to the church that the letter of Hebrews was written to, the tactic used by the author, was first and foremost in a beautiful opening passage to establish the dual nature of Christ, the dual supremacy of Christ. We've got nothing better to go to. And if the promise is that we will become kings and queens also, well, Lord, I want some of that. We thank you, Father, for your work. In Christ's name we pray.